Very quick Nuxt tutorial today. We are going to build using Nuxt UI this very cool modal, which actually is responsive. So if we shrink the page, we can see that it switches to a very cool bottom sheet. It makes your app feels more premium. And we can see that we also have the possibility to use nested modals. And we can also, as we see here, open the modal and manage arguments. So for example, I can switch the argument to 8, open the modal, and it's going to get the argument. So we are going to build a very cool system to handle these modals in a responsive way, which automatically adapts also, of course, to the Nuxt UI theme. Let's just jump right into it. I'm on the index page for this tutorial, so we can go into our code. And the first thing we want to do is creating our modal component, because it's going to be effectively a component that we can add in any page. So let's just create a new component and call it modal. Now inside this component, we are going to basically switch between two components from Nuxt UI, depending on whether we are on a mobile screen or not. So if we go to Nuxt UI, we are basically going to use the modal component, which is this one, and also the drawer component, so that when we switch to mobile, we are going to use this very cool bottom sheet. To do that, we first need to be able to detect the breakpoints. So we are going to import the breakpoints from Tailwind. We can use the breakpoints. Now we are going to define a small interface that we can use to handle the modal and the opening and closing state. So we can actually expose this outside and we can control our modal. And then we can define these three properties, which one is the current argument. So basically the argument the model has been opened with, if any, and then the open status, and finally whether we are on mobile or not. Of course, you can change this, and instead of putting mid here, you can put, for example, large, and in that case, it's going to basically use the bottom sheet at a large breakpoint instead of the mid one. You can do that. Then we are going to define some emits, one for the close and one for the open, in which we also pass the argument. And then we have all of our options, which I'm going to paste because it's faster. So one is going to be the ID, whether we want to put ID for this component. One is going to be the title, which is going to be either a string or a function that takes an argument and then returns a string. In this way, we can define the title and the description using the argument that we passed. And then we're gonna have some variants, basically the options for the one for the sheets and one for the box. We can, in this way, customize the behavior of our box and our sheet. And then finally, we are going to define whether we want it to be dismissible or not. If it's not dismissible, we will have to basically close this programmatically instead of from the UI. Now, as I said, we want to bind the title and the descriptions to the variants of the two elements that we are going to add. So we can define these two variants here. I'm just going to call these meta variants, and basically it's going to build the description, the title, and the dismissible. The dismissible is just going to be taken from the properties, and then the title is going to be, if it's a string, just return the title, otherwise just run the function with the current argument. And this is the same for the description. One watcher and two functions. So this watcher is just going to check the open status and emit the corresponding events. And then we have one function to open the model and one function to close it. And finally, we can expose all this interface externally, so we can control it programmatically. And so we can just use the define expose directive to expose everything outside. Perfect. Now we have everything that we need. And the last thing we need to do, of course, is just to build the HTML. And to do that, we are going to use first a UDrawer here. And we are going to render this only if we are on mobile, so using our directive. We are going to bind our variants. So it's going to be vbind meta variants. Then we are going to attach to the vmodal open and pass the isOpen, so we can actually synchronize our status. And then we have some options for the UI, in which we extend on the body, because we want the sheet to take all the screen whenever we are rendering it, some utility classes to the footer. And finally, we can just expand our properties. So in this case, it's going to be the UI sheet variants. So basically all the properties that we are going to pass to the props is going to be extended here. For the sheet, just as an example, is going to be all the properties that can be passed to this UI element. And so you can just basically create this object and pass it as UI sheet variants, and it's going to be expanded inside this UI element. Then we're gonna have our templates. So we are going to pass the argument as the current argument. Then it's going to be another template for the body, and finally our footer. Then we can now do a velse here and render a umodal. So in this case, we are going to render this if we are not on mobile, and it's going to be very similar. So basically we can just copy this and binding the variants, and then for the UI is going to be a little bit different, but just justifying and the elements and binding the variants for the box. Now we're gonna take all the 3 templates, put it here, and we are just going to modify a little bit the footer, wrap the slot inside this div. In this way it's going to be nicely aligned to the end. We can hit save, and now our components should be done. To test this, we can go into our model page here, and we are going to render these 2 controls. One is going to open the model, and the other one is we are going to use this just to select the argument to open the model with. So we can define this task function, which is just going to open the model using our components. Then we can go here and use a template ref. We can also give this a type. Then we also gonna have our argument and our items that are all the possible values for the arguments, just for the sake of testing, all the numbers from 0 to 10. And now we are good to go. We can hit save, page, reload, and now we have our controls. So we can just pick an argument here, for example 4, and then open the model, and we have our model, which is displaying nothing because indeed it is empty. Give it some title and some description, and then we can use our template for the body, get our argument, and then we can render our argument like this. Now if you pick, for example, 2 and open the model, we can see that the model has been opened with argument 2. And this is cool because you can pass whatever you want. You can pass objects, references, whatever you want. So you can open the model with different objects. A very cool example of this is my free product Bubblet, in which this section you see I am listing all the notifications that I want to appear inside my bubble. And when I click this view button, it's going to open a form in which you have all the data for that notification. And the model element is the same. It's just changing the argument with which it is opened. So this is very cool because you can use just one element and dynamically render stuff inside based on the argument. Let's try the responsiveness. So let's open the model with the argument 2, then just hit F12 and just go down, and we can see that the model becomes a very cool bottom sheet, which can be also dragged. It's going to make your web apps feel extremely premium because they are going to basically be mobile applications. So it's going to be mobile optimized, and like your users are going to love this. I mean, I love this when applications have this, so it's a very cool feature to have in your websites. So I want to show something a little bit more advanced. What I want to do is just show that we can have some nested models, because can be very useful. For example, you open a model for a certain element, and then you want to delete, and you want to have a confirmation model only for that element. You can have nested models. We can just go back into our page, and then inside the body, we can have here our second model, nested L. You can give it some title, then have another template ref here. Now we can have a footer in our first template, which is going to have a button that we can use to open our nested model. So always get the argument, go here, use this U button right here, which is going to just open the nested model with our argument multiplied by 2. This is just a test to see that we can pass arguments around. And for the description, we can also, here in the nested model, we can use the other way to pass description. So we can pass it as this, as a function. So we're going to take our argument and just return a string. We can just give this a type as any, so it's not complaining. Now we can pick an argument, for example 2, open the model, we have our argument. We can also open the nested one, click here, and we see that we have our nested model opened with the correct argument, which is 2 by 2, it's 4. So we have a stack of model, which is extremely cool. And it works also in a responsive way. So if we go into mobile screen and open the first one, then we open the second one, we can see that we have 2 sheets, which are extremely cool. And of course, finally, these models, since they are completely built with Nuxt UI, you see here we are just using 2 Nuxt UI elements, are going to adjust based on the theme. I'm going to add and paste in a new component that we can use to switch the theme. I'm just going to take the code directly from Nuxt UI, so I'm just gonna paste it. We are only rendering this client side, and we just have a switch that handles the dark mode. And inside here, add this. Hit save, and now we have our color mode here. So if we embed the model, we see that it's dark theme. If we switch to light theme, the models is going to be perfectly synchronized with the theme, because as I said, it's built with Nuxt UI. So this was a very quick tutorial. I decided to add these new features into the template and so I just decided to make a little video about how we can do these models. You are going to find all the code inside this Nuxt template. I'm going to push everything here, so you have basically all the models already implemented, and you can just use this project as a starter for any project you want. The links are in the descriptions, and thanks for following, and cheers!